Where in the world is agentic AI taking us? Take 0. All right, so I have to confess something real quick. In one part, I'm already kind of sick of agentic AI. And that's really meant to be like tongue in cheek. But there is a grain of truth to that. I've been working with agents like just super deep dive for like 6 straight weeks. Super deep dive on model context protocol, agent to agent, and using agents in conjunction with one another. And the power is overwhelming, right? You know, as an entrepreneur, I went to the Steve Jobs School of Technology, which is Jobs says that technology for the sake of technology is useless, that we should always start with the customer experience and work our way back to the solution, and we use technology to implement the solution. It doesn't matter how awesome you think something is. It's irrelevant how awesome you think it is. Its relevance is where its impact lies. Okay. And so as an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking in those terms. I'm always thinking like, what problem does this actually solve? And there are many times where I go and I consult with OEMs. Companies will hire me and bring me in to analyze their go-to-market strategy or look at their technological architecture for their products that they're selling. And there are many times where I'll ask the question, just a simple question, or what should be a simple question, what problem does this solve for the end user? I'll ask them, what's your ideal customer profile, right? And he'll give me some generic out of the box answer. And I'll go, no. Who are you helping? There's two types of companies out there. I'm obviously very critical of vendors in our industry. There are some that I'm really high on, but I'm also really, really critical of vendors in our industry. And there's two types. There is the vendor that comes from the whole reason that the company was created or the technology was developed was for the person who's developing it. It's the product is a means to an end, and the end is they want to get rich or they want some exit strategy. Like they start with, I want to get rich. I want to develop some product. I want to whatever. And everything that they do is under that umbrella. That's where they originally start. And they try to find, rather than starting with the market and working their way back to the solution, they start with a solution that they try to find a market for. So you've got one group there, and then you've got the group where there was a specific problem in the market. They tried to find the solution themselves. They had the problem. Okay. They tried to find a solution out there for their problem, and it didn't exist. And so they had to build it. And inductive automation is one of those companies. Flow Software is another one. If you want to hear me, or HighBite is another one, right? Part of the reason I'm so high on those companies is because that's where they started. And it's not because that's where they started. Because they started there, they actually have a real problem that they're very good at solving. Because what they did was they commoditized a product that fixed the problem they had. Okay. So when I look at the market right now with agentic AI, we're getting ready to do these. We just did this model context protocol workshop, and everybody's like, why did you, we're doing this 3-part series. Model context protocol we did in July. We're doing RESTful API with SESME prototypes in the end of September. And then we're doing model context protocol with agent to agent in November. It's a 3-part workshop series that's, everybody who's in Mastermind, it's just part of their tuition. And then people who are not in Mastermind, they can take these workshops. And the question was, why are we doing these workshops? Like, why did we choose, when January came around, we had no intention of doing model context protocol in July and REST with SESME prototypes in September, and then model context protocol with agent to agent protocol in November. Why are we doing them? And the answer is because there's two types of entrepreneurs out there. Okay. If you want to know why, the answer is because you have the vendors who try to find, they see a market and they try to create a product for that market. They don't start with the problem. They start with a goal of, I want to get rich. And then you've got the people who develop a solution like Mark Friedman. Mark Friedman created My AI. And the reason I'm so big on Mark, never mind the fact that he's, gifted. And the first time he and I met in Boston, we were like, peas in a pod, just shooting the shit with each other over a unified namespace. And then he goes and he does Tulip's presentation at Prove It, knocks it out of the park. And he's the only vendor who finds the scheduling anomaly from December, which I knew was there, but I didn't tell anyone was there because the vendor is supposed to figure it out. And Mark was literally the only one who found it. So it's like we're kindred spirits. You know what I mean? Now, not all the other vendors were even looking for it. There was no assumption that all the vendors would find it. But I was surprised there was only one who even looked for it. And he was the one who found it. And so, but why am I so big on Mark Friedman with My AI? And the answer is My AI is a product he's developing for a problem he was solving for his customers. Mark he had this philosophy that, he's operator first. He's operator centric. So am I. I believe the most valuable people in any manufacturing organization are the operators. There's no question about it. It's the operators, the electricians, the mechanics. They are the engine. They are the ones who make everything go. I've been doing this a very, very long time. The least important people in the organization are in the board of directors. They're the chief executive officer and the chief operating officer. I would argue that the COO is more important than the CEO. The CEO is important for strategy and vision, and a right CEO can really drive an organization. People will go, well, if the CEO isn't important, then why is Elon Musk so important to Tesla? Well, the answer is he doesn't operate like a CEO, is my point. Like, compare Elon Musk to other CEOs. Elon Musk wears 5,000 hats. Okay, he's CEO, he's chief architect, he's the director of technology. He literally, when he walks into a room, he's wearing the hat of the smartest person in the room. He's not wearing the hat of the chief executive officer, right? I've been doing this a very long time. The least important people in any organization, it's not that they're not important, but they're the least important. They're they're the ones who are most easily replaceable, are the ones in the boardroom. I mean, I've just been doing this a very, 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 very long time. And I can't tell you the number of people that are in the boardroom who have no idea what they're doing at all. None. Zero, zilch. Like, completely and totally lost. They have mastered the art of pretending they know what they're doing. And it's cognitive dissonance, and everyone around them believes that they do. But almost always, 99.9999% of the time, it's somebody below them who actually knows that they're taking the credit for. That's 99.99. What they're in the boardroom because they've mastered the art of bureaucracy in the politics. Okay? The most important people in any organization are the ones who run the equipment. Mark Friedman solves their problems. They had a specific problem. How do I digitize me? How do I create a digital version of me in all my personas? That's My AI. That's what we try to do we try to do it manually with OneNote and Google Tasks and Trello boards and little scripts we write and spreadsheets. We are literally, each spreadsheet, they're all personas of us. Mark was like, how do I help them do that? But why don't we use AI to do that, to model human beings, the persona of the person? Okay, that My AI comes from a very specific problem he was trying to solve for his customers. So you'll know the products that I am high on, the companies that I am high on, are the companies that come from, I didn't want to get rich. I didn't come with an idea and then go pitch it to venture capitalists, and there's a problem I had that no one else could solve, that I had to go and solve myself. And if I had that problem, other people had that problem too. And those are my favorite products. Okay. The reason we're doing these workshops is because we have to educate the market. Okay. It's our job. It's my job. I have access to the whole market. Because of this platform, because of this community, people reach out to me to ask me to look at their products. I consult on mergers and acquisitions all over the world. I get insight into everything that's happening in our industry. There's very rarely is there a product that comes out or a merger that happens, development that's, it's crazy to me. The number of chief executives who run like software companies in our industry who believe that the people on their team aren't talking about what it is they're doing 6 months before they're doing it. Like rarely does something ever come out that I didn't know about 3 or 4 months earlier. And I'm not the only one. There's lots of people in this industry. I talk to the other people on YouTube, the other influencers on LinkedIn. I hate calling myself an influencer, but fucking hate that term. But and we all say the same thing. People reach out to us and tell us what's going on in their companies. Okay. And we know stuff that's going on 3-4 months before it comes out. Now, if I was running those companies, I would be like, okay, that's the world we live in. Why don't we lean into that rather than try to fight against it? But that's a separate video. So why are we doing these workshops? Why are these workshops important? Well, if we educate the market based on what we know, based on where the market is going, we can increase the fluency of the people who are actually solving problems for manufacturers. We can increase the fluency. And the higher the fluency you have, the more discerning you can be when you're picking solutions. The higher your fluency, the more discerning you can be when you pick solutions. And it's much less likely you're going to get hoodwinked. Go on LinkedIn right now. Put in Agentic AI manufacturing and just scroll through the posts. There are a million charlatans out there. 90% of the posts on LinkedIn are, you'll notice I'm not on LinkedIn very often anymore. LinkedIn is a textbook example of how Microsoft can't fucking do anything right. Not anything right. They do some things right, but it's 90% of the posts are written by artificial intelligence. And I don't have a problem with people using LLMs to clean up a post, but you should at least write the post. You shouldn't prompt an agent to write you a post. 90% are written by agents. They're not even novel ideas. They're just regurgitating. That's why nobody engages with them. Number 2, the number of products that are coming out in the agentic AI space that are dead in the fucking water. Like just dead in the water. There's 2 in particular I'm weighing back and forth whether I want to even comment on because I don't want to, piss in someone's cornflakes. Because I believe in innovation but it's like I look at those, I see them come across, I make a phone call, I reach out to somebody, I have a meeting, I look at their product and I'm like, yeah, this is going nowhere. Yeah, this is, anybody who spends any money on this is wasting their money. The reason we need to do these is 2 reasons. Number 1, it's that first piece. It's how will you be able to discern the difference between a product that solves real problems and it's coming from that perspective of solving real problems and a product that doesn't. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, unlike any technological breakthrough in my career, my career started in 2000 for real in the industry. So I've been in this industry for 25 years. The last breakthrough that was anything like this was MQTT. And MQTT was invented before my career started, but it didn't really get introduced into industry en masse until 2013, 14, and it exploded in like 18, 19, 20, right? That was the last big major technological advancement pre-agentic AI. So large language models, large reasoning models, and agents turns into agentic AI. It's all the stuff that you're seeing. We've done a bunch of videos on it, and we're seeing a lot of people hey, yeah, I saw this video and we're doing similar stuff to what Walker put in his video. More and more solutions. So more and more solutions you see in the manufacturing facility are going to be homebrew. Not all of them, but there's going to be a lot more homebrew solutions in manufacturing facilities. Manufacturers are going to go a lot further. Rather than bringing in integrators and solutions providers, like spending $1 million a month on McKinsey or something for 12 months and then seeing what they get at the end of the 12 months. Rather than manufacturers doing that kind of thing, what they're really going to do is agentic AI gives manufacturers the ability to prototype their solutions first, wireframe their solutions first using agents. Because you can connect to data, you can collect data, you can store data, you can analyze and visualize, all using agentic AI. So you don't need the vendor to do that for you in the prototype phase, right? You're going to need integrators. I mean, it's just no way around it. I mean, manufacturers are not going to do this all internally. Number one, they don't have the resources. They're not going to be able to hire the resources. There aren't enough people out in the market who could do this stuff. So if manufacturers are all competing with one another for that talent, the cost of that talent is going to skyrocket through the roof. I mean, I know integrators. This is no bullshit. This is how our market has changed. I'm $1 million a year guy, right? And I've made $1 million a year for years now, $1 million more. Okay. I was making $600,000 a year in 2000 and before I started my Intellic. So I think 2014, I made $660,000 that year. And that was on the consulting side, right? I know manufacturers who are hiring architects like me for $600,000 a year. I know people personally, people I've worked with who were offered took $600,000 deals to go work for manufacturers. That was unheard of. I mean, a plant manager doesn't make $600,000, and they're working in a plant making $600K. Okay. Now, is that the exception, not the rule? Of course, it's the exception. It's not the rule, but it's also a trend because I know multiple people now. It's starting to trend in that direction. Well, if manufacturers decide to adopt that, the value of someone like me is going to go. It's going to go 10x. Someone like you, it's going to go 10x. And that's not sustainable. So part of the reason we're doing these workshops is so that we can teach more people how to unlock the potential of agentic AI. It's part of the reason we've literally shifted our focus. We're like, we have to do this. The number of DMs that I've gotten from people saying, hey, can you please make sure you include this in the REST workshop? Okay. Or, hey, you'll notice we made the recordings available for the MCP workshop. Right? We'd never do that. We never post facto, if you didn't participate in the workshop, the only way you would be able to get the recordings is if you join Mastermind, because if you join Mastermind, you get all the recordings of everything we've done all the way back to 2000. But we don't ever talk about that. We have never, with the MCP workshop, we have made it available for people to buy the recordings of the MCP workshop. Why? Because we got dozens and dozens of messages from people saying, I didn't know you were doing that workshop. Is there any chance I can get the recordings? Like, that solution comes from a very specific problem in the market. Okay. So what are in these workshops? All right. So the workshop that we just completed, which the recordings are available. If you're in Mastermind, you already got them. If you didn't participate in the workshop, if you didn't do the sign up thing and get access to you can go to IIoT.university and all the recordings from the workshop of Aaron Semley, myself, Mark Friedman, and Eric ETA from Flow Software are available. September 29th and 30th, Annabelle Velarde, myself, and someone from SESME, I think it's going to be Jonathan Wise, we are going to be doing the API workshop. So September 29 and 30. Why are we doing API? It won't just be REST. We're calling it the REST API, but it's an API workshop. What's the reason we're doing that? Why is it important? Okay. It didn't matter that you knew how to build RESTful APIs. if you knew how to build them, that's great. Now you need to know. Okay. And the reason why is because you're going to be using agents. Agents are going to be using model context protocol, and model context protocol tools that the agent uses, the method it calls, they get mapped to API methods. Okay. And so in order for you to understand the workflow and the tool chain that the agent's using, which you'll need to know as a supervisor, you have to know how those are built. Okay. You have to know how to build them. You may not have to build them, but you've got to know how they're built. Just like if you're using agents to write code, people who know how to write code and how code is written are much better supervisors of agents writing code than people who don't. Okay. So the market needs the fluency in the API because that is a very rare fluency. Okay. We're going to be covering GraphQL. We're going to be covering REST, and we're going to be covering Sesame prototypes in that workshop, September 29th and 30th. And I think if you're in Mastermind, you'll get the sign up, I think August 11th, and you can buy the workshop starting August 11th, I'm pretty sure. And then in November, we haven't selected the dates yet. We will finish this 3-part series of workshops with advanced model context protocol and agent to agent working together. Okay. And we're going to do all of that on our virtual factory, the virtual factory we're using for the Prove It conference in February. So everything you see in November is going to be integrated with the virtual factory. Okay. We really didn't have the time to put these together. I mean, we're so unbelievably busy, and the consulting and everything that we're doing for OEMs and like trying to guide them is really consuming a lot of my time. And, what I do with Mastermind and, the integrator workshop that we're putting together, which is incredibly important, and I have to do it. We really didn't have the time to do these workshops, but the reason we're doing them is because we must. We absolutely must. Okay. And, just like I started at the beginning, am I getting a little bit of agentic AI fatigue? Absolutely. But does that change the fact that I have to pay attention to it? No. And does it change the fact that you got to pay attention to it? Absolutely not. It's not going anywhere. The nail gun has been invented for engineers, right? The houses aren't going to build themselves. We got to learn how to use this nail gun to build houses much, much, much faster. And that's what these workshops are all about. All right. With that, like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.